Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Perry Christie, and a delegation including cabinet ministers, opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis, and St. Anne's MP Hubert Chipman, officials from the National Emergency Management Agency, the Royal Bahamas Defence and Police Forces, travelled to Long Island to assess damages from Hurricane Joaquin today. Before they departed, a short prayer.
Thank you, God, for this moment. Now, God, as we fly and drive the highways, we ask you, God, that you keep us safe and bring us all safely back. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Touching down on Long Island, the Prime Minister allowed Long Islanders to voice their concerns.
I was excited when I heard that the Prime Minister was coming here today. I'm one of those persons. I'm not afraid to speak up. This is my island, and I would like for the government to take care of Long Island, the entire Long Island, and the southeastern Bahamas.
Yes.
Because this hurricane was a monster.
Yeah.
I've never experienced nothing like this before. What I went through, I said, I don't want to go through this again. I was okay, I'm fine, because where I'm living, I'm on a hill, and I'm living in a bunker. And I was protected, but I was worried about those persons who I know was in areas like how I am situated. And right now, I wouldn't even put no wooden roof on my house for what I've experienced this time. What I'm in, I will put the same roof on top of my top floor. Because this storm wasn't nothing to play with. I don't take nothing for granted. If the breeze, they say it only blowing 10 miles per hour, my storm shutters is up. Because when you wait for last minute, that's when accidents happen. Things could go wrong. You could lose your life doing foolishness. I came out last night because we didn't have no communication. And I was concerned about some of the elderly people in my area. I took a chance. And I'm not afraid to say that. I took a chance because I didn't know what was happening with them. Because I know the state of some of those persons. And when I went to a lady last time, she said to me, Dillis, I am thankful that you came. I'm not a part of local government. But Long Island, these are my people. And I will stand up for them.
Amen.
So I want y'all not to just come here today, pay this visit, and when y'all leave us abandoned. Y'all take care of Long Island. Because we are tired of it, just tired.
Yes, one of the things I want to add to that is that Dillis Smith.
Dillis Smith.
Yes.
And I live at DYLLIS, and I live in Seymour.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to add to that is that, you know, I normally listen to immediate response, and when they forecast in the storm, you know, they have a tendency of not including. I always talk about the Ragged Island, all those small little keys. But you know, when the hurricane starts, it starts, and those people that on the ocean front, you know, it's not like you in Nassau in the middle. These people build their house on the ocean front, so we have to pay attention to those families that go way out, Auckland's, Crocodile, and that's what we experienced this time. You know, the meteorologist could say things, but the Father directs the storm, so He switched it, and we feel that this time. They said that we were unprepared. We was prepared, but it's just that He runs it, He rules it, and we now got to learn from it. So don't just say one island, say all island. Tell all be prepared and all get prepared, because you never know where the storm going. And that's my thing. And thank you very much.
While on the way back to the capital, he held a press conference on Exuma.
We have overflown both San Salvador and Rum Key, and in addition to overflying Long Island, we landed in the north and had at least information given to us confirming what we actually saw with our own eyes when we overflew the island, that it seems to be major devastation in the south of Long Island. We have had confirmed that, come, you Director Nemo. We've had confirmed that the airports, Crooked Island and Acklands, must remain closed at least until Monday because of flooding. We have seen ourselves during the overflight the Deadman's Key Airport, which is inundated with water, and therefore we cannot use that airport, we cannot land in there. The challenge now for the government is to move immediately to address the issues that are confronting us. The first one I'd like to is the private sector entity BTC with communications. And I've had a conversation with Mr. Leon Williams, who will now indicate to you what BTC will do to bring their communications up.
We've had a number of towers, Carla, would you come? Lost in Long Island, 3 towers to be exact. We've lost a tower in Crooked Island. And so our challenge right now is to get into Long Island. Once we get Long Island up, we'll be able to get the other islands up. We knew that the dashboard went green, all seems to, which meant that BEC would have helped us in Crooked Island to get the power on, the fact that it went green, but we still have no communications with Crooked Island. And as PM indicated a while ago, our quest is to get into Crooked Island. We knew we lost the roof for the generators in Crooked Island and the roof for the building in Crooked Island. 3 antennas, we've got what we call cows, cellular on wheels, temporary, that we want to bring into Long Island to restore the cellular network as soon as we get power up. We have also here in the Bahamas the person responsible for all things technical for Cable and Wireless, so we've got the entire support of Cable and Wireless. And maybe, Carlo, you can say something.
Sure, thank you, Leon. Well, we overflied the islands and we saw the damages. As Leo mentioned, we saw antennas and towers being severely affected by the hurricane. We are mobilizing people from also the neighboring countries in Cable and Wireless, from Jamaica and Panama, ready to fly into the Bahamas to support in the restoration. The first team of technical engineers with spare parts and as well with tools is going to fly out tomorrow in charters down to Long Island. There's going to be a team coming from Miami, and there's going to be a team coming from Nassau as well coming down. The good news is that our submarine network, BDSNI, is holding firm, so we are connected, and communications are going through these alternative means, so the Bahamas is connected to the rest of the world.
Once your team moves in, how long do you expect it'll take before services are restored?
It's going to depend case by case. In some areas where we don't have commercial power, we're going to ship down generators, so gensets that to be fueled with diesel. And if we find that the equipment's hardware and software are not burned by the flooding, I would say that the restoration could be in 1 day. In other cases where the restoration is going to take more time, for example, if we have towers down or poles down, we need to erect a pole. That is going to take 3 to 5 days, I would say. So worst case, though, I'm confident to say that in 10 days maximum, we would be in a pretty good shape.
Can you get your name and title again?
Say it again, sorry?
Your name and title again.
Carlo Alloni. And I'm the group CTIO for Cable and Wireless.
Can you spell that, please?
It's CARLOALLONI.
And I know it's still early, but have you spoken to anyone who could tell you what the initial damages to BTC's property overall, or Cable and Wireless property overall across the country?
Still, we don't have a detailed list, and the priority number 1 it has been to keep our people and the communities safe. So as soon as we can get inside our central offices, inside into the equipment, and it's safe for the employees to go in, then we're going to start having a detailed list.
So we have staff working 24/7 at Point Siena. These staff will have every 2 hours is a report generated. Every island that has a sat phone is checking in. The difficulty, however, is that in Long Island and some of the other islands, staff can't get to the other settlements because of the water. So they can only tell you what is damaged really within their settlements. That's the challenge we have in Long Island and in Crooked Island. So we've got the sat phones, reports coming in, but stations, for example, the person in Auckland or in Crooked Island is on a hill and he can't get down off the hill, and so he's been locked down there for 2-3 days now.
Okay. The next major challenge we have, obviously, is electricity. You heard the report about lamp poles being down and the necessity of being able to get people power, connected to power. It has major health implications in terms of people who are diabetic and therefore need refrigeration. And so this, again, is a matter of extreme urgency to the government. We have the General Manager of BEC with us, Mr. Kevin Baisden. I would like for him to give you an assessment on what we are going to do.
Okay, as it relates to Long Island, based on the flyover, there are any number of poles down, particularly in the south area, as well as some lines. We can say a lot of the infrastructure is still intact, but out of necessity, we would have to change a number of poles as well as repair the power lines. You would have heard that the north and south are physically separated because of the water, and that presents an additional challenge, not only from communications via phones, but also in terms of staff on one side being able to talk to the other side on an ongoing basis. So we are continuing with our assessments. Our staff on the ground has already begun the isolation in terms of the north side. The overall idea will be to get on as much customers as we can, as quickly as we can, by isolating the faulty circuits, getting the priority circuits on, and that would be our approach. We plan to send a team down in tomorrow to do some additional assessment, and we would make provisions not only for them to land on the north, but to also be able to get on the south side to carry out assessments, as well as assist our teams down there with that work. We are an archipelago. We have had a number of islands that have been damaged by the hurricane at the same time, and hence we're going to have our resources designed such that we'd be able to work multiple islands at the same time. And in that regard, we would also be having assistance from our international partners, in particular CARELEC, the Association of Electrical Utilities. They are on standby waiting to send in personnel. Obviously, with the number of poles that are down in some situations, we would also have to utilize a barge to try and get in heavy equipment as well as materials to assist with that. But we give our assurance that we're going to take every step to ensure that customers are on as quickly as possible. The other challenge in Long Island, though, would also be the flooding, because some areas, even if we are able to get the main power on, the buildings obviously would have to be inspected first to make sure they're safe to energize. And then, of course, the message we send to all customers from a safety perspective: stay away from down power lines. Don't assume that they're dead. Stay away. Just allow the experts to deal with them.
Any idea how long residents could be without power, or is it still early to tell?
It's too early to tell. The assessment stage is key. Most persons believe you can just rush in there and say, well, okay, X amount of days. No, what we're saying, we need to carry out a more detailed assessment. And as we carry that assessment, we would keep the public updated in terms of the progress being made and the amount of work what we're up against.
And Kevin, is this San Salvador?
In terms of San Salvador, there again we're going to get a team in there. There are some poles down, so we'd have to assist them in terms of those poles, as well as repair of power lines. So we would deal with San Salvador well. Similarly, in terms of Ronchi, to try and get resources there in the ground to offer additional assistance and get them powered up as quickly as possible.
Just let me provide some continuity here. The infrastructure is going to be extraordinary in terms of costs to the central government. The devastation is not just to people's private property, houses, and where we're going to have to find a formula to render assistance, but the infrastructure has been severely damaged, and that goes into millions of dollars when you add the sum total up. And that's why the assessment is very important. But as we speak, there are people who are suffering. And Melanie Griffin is the Minister for Social Services. Social Services will have to have necessarily a very dynamic, immediate impact. And so we are going to continue with assessments first thing tomorrow. And Mrs. Griffin, would you please come and speak to what has to happen here?
Okay, Prime Minister, certainly what has to happen is that Social Services has an officer who actually is in the south. We were unable to reach her, but we had one of our auxiliary officers was present in the north today. But what we will be doing is the teams are already prepared in Nassau, in New Providence, to come down as soon as possible, which will be tomorrow. And once they get here tomorrow, they'll be able to liaise with the officer in the south. and begin the assessments immediately. Whatever immediate needs there are with the families, whether it's food assistance or whatever, we'll be able to assist with those needs immediately. And then, of course, the assessments of damages to homes and, any psychological damages that would, in terms of counseling that is required, all of that we will be able to begin work on immediately tomorrow.
You would know that the leader of the opposition is accompanying us. In prior experiences of this kind, if I was in government, the opposition would accompany me. If the FNM were in power, I would accompany them. We've always tried to take an approach to this that is based on national challenges and an appreciation that we have to work together to overcome what our people are confronted with. So I have with me the leader of the opposition, who has had a similar experience as I have in moving around, and I wish him to have something to say.
This is a time for the country to come together. There's no red and there's no yellow. It's one nation, and we must understand that when lives are at stake, we must all work together to ensure the safety and delivery of those particular lives, to ensure minimize death. I would send a message out to the churches that there are many people who are suffering, especially in the southern Bahamas. And I'd like the churches even to announce, if not by Sunday, what is happening, and declare their next service some time for peace, time for tranquility, time to come together as one Bahamas, and ask Bahamians to donate non-perishable items so we can send to the affected areas. I'd also like the schools to do the same thing. I think it would be great if each and every school would ask every child to bring a can of some non-perishable item to the school so it can be sent to Red Cross and brought to the areas that are affected. I think it would also teach the children how important it is to act as one, and that there's no division, especially when it comes to lives and when it comes to national disaster. We must work as one. And once there's any national disaster, it's not politics. You must remember that the islands were hit by Hurricane Joaquin. Joaquin did not determine which was red and which was white. Joaquin only devastated homes generally. And we must work accordingly. We must work together as one Bahamas to bring this nation back.
Thank you very much. We have, by law, the director of NEMA that has specific responsibilities to lead the interventions that are necessary. I have determined during the process of this journey that we've been on today that NEMA has to be supplemented with very, very strong teams because of the widespread damage that has been inflicted and because of the necessity to examine what has happened in islands like Crooked Island and Acklins where we are unable to land. I have had discussions with the director of NEMA, Captain Russell, to indicate to him that we have always been able to use allies and friends who have volunteered to come in and who have assets that can be used. I'm advised that the British Navy is on its way to the affected area, and that Captain Russell, during the course of this evening, will make a determination of whether they are invited to stay in the area of Acklins and Crooked Island or to move to the area of Long Island. I say that to say that the Commodore of the Defense Force has indicated that naval assets of the Bahamian Defense Force are moving towards Long Island. And so we are therefore trying to concentrate resources that will be able to bring relief to the people of these affected areas. We are not going to spare any effort at all in being able to bring immediate assistance to the people wherever they are. And so we know the islands that have been affected. Alfred Gray, where's Alfred Gray? He's on the line to talking to somebody. But we know the islands that have been affected, and the concern we have is that even though we have had American surveillance and Americans with Bahamians on board, I think their chopper, have gone into Acklands and Crooked Island and given us a report that the airports on both islands are unusable and we cannot land, and at least until Monday it appears that we won't be able to land. But we cannot wait until Monday to be able to make the assessment as to whether people are in acute need. And so we're going to have to, again this evening, make necessary arrangements to see if we are able to get the Americans again to have teams that will be flown from Nassau to Inagua, and to be able to have those teams helicoptered into Acklands and Crooked Island with a view to their being able to make the assessments that may be critical to people's survival. And so from our point of view, this is a matter that is continuing. Alfred, I don't know if you've had discussions with your district, and you'd wish to speak to it.
Well, Prime Minister, thank you very much. I'd just like to say that I am only able to speak to what I heard as of yesterday morning. I spoke with the administrator, and I spoke to 2 private citizens who had access to satellite phones. And the airports in both Crooked Island and Acklands were underwater when they spoke to me. And I'm advised by Aviation Department that they're still underwater, and they will be so until at least Monday. I've also spoken to the administrators who confirm that several homes were damaged in the areas to which he had had access up to that point. Some 7 or 8 homes were completely destroyed. And so if I took that to mean what the island's position is like, I would expect that there are many homes that were destroyed in the hurricane, on the wake of the hurricane in both Crooked Island and Acklands. The immediate need for me, and I speak for the people, will be to get in there, assess the damage, and to provide food and water. Acklands and Crooked Island have already experienced perhaps the most difficult lives between them in our country. Any devastation make lives very difficult for them. And whatever the government could do to bring relief in the shortest possible time, I'm expecting them to do so. Tomorrow, if we can go in there by helicopter, I would be extremely delighted, because at least they will be able to see, touch, and feel what we're trying to do. Now they only hear us by radio if they have batteries, because all of the electricity has been out for the last 3-4 days, so it's no television. If they don't have battery radio, that's the end of the communication system. There's no cell phone, there's no landline, and so we are disconnected from them totally. My heart bleeds for the people of Salina Point in particular, because they are 45 miles from the nearest settlement, and we have heard nothing from them since the hurricane occurred. And that, to me, is troubling. We don't know what's going on there. They can't come to us. We can't go to them because of the depth of the water between the settlements. And so, Prime Minister, I thank you for at least suggesting, and hopefully tomorrow we can work a way so that the helicopters can go in each settlement and find out what's going on, because otherwise we won't know. And since we can't drive by vehicles, the next best thing is to go from settlement to settlement, if it's only 2 minutes on the ground, and see what's going on, hear from the people as to what in fact has happened, and make our assessment and respond to those troubles and other issues as soon as it's humanly possible.
Thank you. Could we have, you can now tell us what's actually happened.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, NEMA is a coordinating agency. All of our partners, local partners, regional partners, and international partners, we pledge to assist one another in times of distress. As a coordinating agency, our first task in the aftermath of disaster is to bring the Prime Minister and the advisory council, the disaster council, to the disaster-stricken area, so they can physically see
the state of the area impacted, and to visualize what some course of action need to be taken. In this case here, we came here and we saw there's a blockage in terms of accessing the whole island because of something beyond our control, the flooding. Therefore, we must now see how we can get across that particular barrier. And we aim now to look at where our assets are and seek to bring them to the area to assist us in rectifying that problem of getting across the island. You can imagine coming to Long Island and the administrator couldn't link up with us. She's in distress. Okay, so that's something that we're mindful of. This morning, knowing the nature of the flooding, we contacted our friends, the U.S. Coast Guard, and they did a reconnaissance flight for us to check all these areas down to Acklands and Crooked Island. And the reports are those areas are flooded, as mentioned by both by the Prime Minister and Mr. Gray here. So our plan is to see how we could, by tapping into the resources of our partners with the helicopter assets, to get into those areas. A typical example was the reconnaissance aircraft that we sent out this morning. They passed by Samanaki. They saw 9 persons who were on Samanaki, waving. So they eventually flew back around a small craft and dropped some stuff there, a package for them. And they eventually contacted the Coast Guard cutter, a Coast Guard chopper, who was directed from its search and rescue missions, and they came to that site where they physically saw 9 persons. They recovered those 9 persons and transport them to Acklands and Meguana where they reside. So that's how we're trying to build this partnership. The Coast Guard helicopter was diverted from its search and rescue missions to take on this exercise based on a report they got from another Coast Guard asset. So again, we're going to appeal to them tomorrow because we have not been able to get to Acklands and Crooked Island to physically go on the ground to see what is going on. If they can oblige us and allow us just to touch the ground for a few minutes just to see the state of the persons on the islands. As I mentioned earlier, the Royal Navy, one of their assets should be in the area sometime tomorrow evening. I'll try and make contact with the ship because the helicopters has the capability of, even though the ship is moving, they can airborne and go ahead and come back. So I'll see if they can oblige us likewise and have their helicopter airborne to check out those 2 areas for us. In the meantime, we're also trying to get some additional Marines down to Inagua, as mentioned, so that in the event the helicopters can move persons from Inagua into Acklands and Crooked Island to assist the administrators there in doing some work. And that's the plan of action moving forward.
One final point I'd like to say, there has been a rumor and speculation about loss of life on Long Island. I've spoken with the Commissioner of Police who has been moving around these islands himself, and he indicated to me a few minutes ago that that rumor is not true. He said there has been 1 death which is not connected to the hurricane itself. We know the name of the person who died. We know where he was living on Long Island. The rumor seems to have emanated from 8 persons who moved from their residence to safer premises or safer location. Those persons, I'm advised by the Commissioner, have been found, and therefore when you heard about 8 people dying, that is absolutely not true. The rumors have now been magnified where you talk about 30 people. That is absolutely not true, the Commissioner says. He says that he has taken time out to let the press know, broadcast media as well, that it is not true. And so I want to be able to say that even though we have to anticipate with this kind of calamitous impact on our country that people could die, we are very, very happy up to this point to know that there has been a loss of life, but they said not connected to the hurricane. Having said that, we want to be able to impress upon the Bahamian people that the government of the Bahamas will dedicate resources, and we are going to really strengthen NEMA's capacity to be able to effect the recovery going on by actually putting in special teams that we will announce in the next 24 hours, persons who will be designated to come in to assist. And these are people with special qualifications, because whether it's social services, the country has to go on, and so the director of social services has to run the country's social services. We're going to find people who have the experience of social services and who will be dedicated to this specific occurrence in our country. The same for engineering. We are going to be able to have people dedicated to deal with this, and we're going to just take a couple hours to identify those people and get them going, and getting some of them out as early as tomorrow to make the kinds of assessments, because it's not going to be good enough for us to do this island by island. We have to have the capacity to touch all of these islands at the same time, contemporaneously, one with the other. And so again, we want to be able to thank you for the cooperation. I really want, since we're in Exuma, I've really been impressed with the way in which I've been in touch with the representative, I've been in touch with the administrator. And you have been very impressive in the way in which you have gone about dealing with the issue here in Exuma, and all over the island of Exuma, where clearly once this occurred, you sprung into action, and you have been very effective and efficient in your operations. And I really want to thank you on behalf of the government and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for demonstrating exactly how it should be done. Thank you very much. Okay, we're ready to fly back to Nassau.